All work and no play, are you, Henry? All right. Let's see what makes you tick.
The Medium is a horror game. I don't want to say it's a survival horror game because it doesn't really feel like one. I understand a lot of people have different takes on what makes something survival horror, and this game certainly has some elements that are typically found in that genre, but it's completely missing what I'd consider some of the most important elements, such as inventory management, supply conservation, combat with challenging encounters. Oh, and the game not treating you like a dumb baby, aka the survival part of survival horror. I've covered the majority of the Silent Hill series on this channel previously, so I figured I should give some thoughts on this game inspired by Silent Hill. However, I can't say I'm a fan of Bloober Team at all. Among all the companies and dev teams coattail riding PT's fame and cancellation, they seem to be the only ones that got away with it scot-free, seeing how their game Layers of Fear did well enough to warrant a sequel. So naturally, they would end up making something that tries a little too hard to constantly remind us of Silent Hill. Like, the actual Silent Hill. While yes, it is a dead franchise, the past few years have come with many baseless rumors that Konami, its owner, is cooking up a new one that'll get announced right around the corner. In reality, the only noise it's made the past few years are DLC guest appearances. Who knows, maybe a new game will be announced tomorrow. Konami's been really weird lately. The point is, Bloober Team took advantage of people adoring PT, they took advantage of people being obsessed with cyberpunk shit, and now they're taking advantage of Silent Hill fans continuing to lament the franchise's current state. Anyway, this game got my attention, so I decided to check it out. Through Game Pass, which I only paid $1 to subscribe to.
It always felt so real. The blood on my cheek, the cold sweat running down my skin. I'd managed to convince myself it really happened. This scarred a memory. A part of me I could never fully understand. And, well, that wasn't the only part. No wonder people used to think I was strange. If they only knew.
Marianne here is the medium, who bears a strong connection with a world where spirits and remnant psyches roam. She's lured deeper into this world in order to find the truth of her mysterious past.
I know what you are.
What? Who is this?
My name is Thomas. I need your help.
Listen, if that's all you've got, I'm...
No, there's more. I can give you the answers you've been looking for your whole life. But I need you to trust me.
Trust you? I don't even know you.
It all starts with a dead girl.
Trekking through this perilous adventure full of nightmares. Or nightmare. This guy. Will this be the first Bloober Team game I don't find to be a complete joke? No. I'll talk about the gameplay first and foremost, since I really like the idea of a new game rooted in classic survival horror, which is what I was led to believe. Is that my fault? I don't know. First and foremost, I'll praise the game for making a horror game that's not in first person, but rather uses dynamic angles with fixed cameras. Much closer to Silent Hill's camera utilization than Resident Evil's, as it moves and tracks the character when needed. I kind of wish the game at least included tank controls as an alternate way to play, because moving during these camera changes is annoying, but it's not that big of a deal. I also like that there's no HUD in the game. The only sort of meter to speak of is on Marianne's arm that shows the amount of energy you have stored at that moment, which you use to clear obstacles. Immersion is pretty important for games like this, and avoiding a HUD when the game doesn't need it is a good design choice. If only they didn't rely on button prompts so much instead of having interactables and observations stand out artistically. I will also say the visuals are pretty excellent, especially when you're observing things up close, and there are set pieces that look as stylish as they are foreboding, even if some of its reused assets are glaringly obvious. Well, that's it for all the things I liked. It's downhill from here, folks, and that hill is steep. I have to stress that I really like survival horror games. I firmly believe we've already gotten the best we possibly could from this genre, but there's modern titles that definitely hit some good marks in their strides. Sometimes it doesn't need to be a head-scratching puzzler, just a good visceral experience that had an endearing story to tell. Either way, the medium was anything but a cerebral experience. The puzzles and obstacles range between effortless and tedious. Some of them are so lacking that Marianne over here sometimes just solves them for you.
No, that's not it. Not that one either. Okay, so this is Boris's seat. So the one I'm looking for is... This is it. The man I'm looking for. This is where he died. That's it. Nicholas. Okay, Nick. Let's get you out of here.
And the only time an obstacle took me more than a few seconds to beat is when it simply asks for some backtracking or Marianne's intuition ability, which is just Arkham Vision, something that's been plaguing modern action games for over a decade now. This function is probably the worst part of the gameplay. It feels completely unnecessary when looking for objects. The more frustrated player probably leaves it on so they never miss any items or switches, to the detriment of the sound design and visuals that get muffled while using it. There's also instances where the game has such little faith in your ability to problem solve that they'll lock you in a room until you get the information your character needs to make progress. And I don't mean the door locks and you need to figure out a way to open it. I mean the game literally forces you to stay in the room because Marianne must have forgotten something to check, so she chooses not to open the door.
I still don't know her real name. Just words. Sounds without meaning.
There was even an instance where the puzzle wouldn't let me answer incorrectly. Is this a puzzle? I'm pretty sure it's supposed to be. I don't understand why Bloober wanted this experience to be so railroaded. Sometimes they even provide arrows on the floor in case you're too dumb to just look around. When the game isn't completely linear, it gives such little room to get lost or explore. If I get lost or I answer incorrectly, that's probably my own fault. Let me get lost. Let me take everything and slowly figure out the obstacles for myself. I would forgive these worthless puzzles and annoying obstacles if the rest of the gameplay was good. But there is no rest. That's it. There's no combat, and there's not really anything that makes you feel like you're in control as a player, besides a parry technique they only use for a single scenario. Everything else is just a quick trial and error or lying to you about the danger it actually represents. Take these nonsense balance segments, for example. Besides the burning question of why the hell are these in a survival horror game, I need to emphasize that you can't actually fall off of them. Your character just stumbles for a moment and then proceeds. This is absolutely ridiculous. This is supposed to be a survival horror game, right? Why are they removing basic elements that could emphasize the survival aspect? Man, say what you want about Death Stranding, but at least that walking simulator actually depended on you to get through the terrain and obstacles that lied ahead with an actual sense of potential failure. And in regards to the horror aspect, the only time it got any kind of reaction out of me is when they did a stupid ass jump scare. Piss off, Bloober. There's also really bizarre setups that lead to absolutely nothing in a gameplay perspective. Take this scenario, for example, where Marianne has taken control of a different character. There's the parry technique, where you can deflect these attacks with good timing in order to kill some tentacles. Okay, that's something. I figured this far into the game that there's no real combat, but hey, maybe I need to get a hang of this mechanic for future obstacles. Then I reached this large, ominous creature and was thinking, oh, maybe he's gonna start attacking me with them big ol' hands and I gotta deflect with precision. Okay, this could be a neat little fight. Let's get this started.
Let's get this over with.
Or over with. Oh, okay, man. Then the scenario just kinda ends, but then it starts up again, reverting our perspective back to Marianne, and the thought comes back to me. Ah, I see. She experienced this through his perspective. Now she has that parry ability, and now we're gonna get this confrontation started.
I'm not your judge. I'm just the ferryman. Be gone. Richard.
Wait, what? And then again, the scenario just closes and the monster is gone. This game managed to give me two of the most flaccid, anticlimactic ends to an arc I've ever witnessed in succession. There's something impressive about how much this video game refuses to be a video game. Something else worth bringing up, the PC version of this game is not well optimized. I noticed a lot of stuttering along with some visual glitches throughout. Also, it makes my recording software go completely haywire, as if Nvidia refuses to capture any of my gameplay because it hates the game more than I do. And, to top that all off, it's prone to crash my entire computer. Like, forced shutdown. I have a goddamn monster build that tramples this dumbass game's recommended specs, and yet it shut down my whole computer in specific sections. I think it has something to do with the elements they use in the forest, but I don't care. It crashed on me in the ending twice. It got to the point where they made the finale so insanely intense by accident because I just want to record this fucking ending and stop playing this crap already. This made every second incredibly unnerving for me because if my computer crashes, then I lose all of that footage. This is so much worse than the first time I tried playing the PC port of Silent Hill 2 on Windows 10 back in like 2016, which, by the way, if you guys don't already know, it's 2021 now, and the fine people behind the enhancement packs for Silent Hill 2 on PC have made it so easy to get that set up. You literally just download a few zip files, follow 5 simple steps, and it plays fantastically. Perfect widescreen, better visuals, better fog than before. It even reads all the buttons and both triggers on my Xbox One controller without having to change a thing. Seriously, if you have Silent Hill 2 on PC, it isn't hard to find, wink wink, you can just go to enhance.townofsilenthill.com/sh2/install.htm and the instructions are as easy as Pop-Tarts. This was not a sponsored ad, I just love Silent Hill 2 and I'm gaga over how easy it is to get the PC version working, which I only did for the sake of capturing better looking footage of the game as well as cleansing my palette. Anyway, I completely lost track of the medium, so getting back to that. Even after all of this bullshit, the bad gameplay, the bad performance, the bad puzzles, I would forgive everything else if it had a good story. Give me a reason to care about the visuals surrounding me. Give me a reason to care about these characters. Give me a reason to care about the ominous score and enveloping atmosphere. Sadly, not only did this game fail to provide a compelling story, it delivers some really questionable messages to the player. Major spoilers coming your way, so if you want to avoid that, then skip to this time and go play this piece of shit. And slight context warning, this segment discusses topics of abuse and trauma. There's also a link to the timestamp below in the description to skip this part. 3, 2, 1, there's your warning. So, a big theme for the medium is trauma, and how a victim of trauma affects those around them. Marianne comes face to face with spirits of people that were either victims or abusers. Now, I'm not someone who necessarily suffered from a personally traumatic experience. The worst thing I remember having to deal with in my childhood is my mom taking away my Nintendo 64 because my report card was shitty. Or that one time my dad's friend who owned a bird had it out of its cage and I was really scared of the bird. That's it. However, I have a friend who also played through the medium who has dealt with legitimate personal trauma. As a victim of abuse, they can provide insight to that aspect that I don't want to pretend I fully understand. They found the ending and how the writers handled these themes to be incredibly hurtful and morally bankrupt. And why that's the case, they explained to me with a message that I'll read right now. As a trauma victim, I'm glad I didn't play this during one of my harder days. Marianne tracks down a spirit character that went by the name Sadness, who turned out to be the spirit of her sister Lily, and was also a victim of molestation from a non-relative as well as arson from another non-relative. The main villain, known as the Maw, was a manifestation of her past trauma, whom she was able to communicate with throughout her abilities as a medium.
She's a medium too, Marianne. A powerful one. Guess it runs in the family. When Richard hurt her, it awoke something inside her. Something terrible.
Something she and Marianne inherited from their father Thomas. She made a deal with the Maw so both her and Marianne can survive the house burning down, but in exchange, this demon would be let loose, causing the Neva Massacre.
So it's true. The Neva Massacre.
And he also starts looking for a means to attaining more power through Marianne, who he was stalking throughout the game. Lily pleads with Marianne at the end of the game to kill her in order to stop the Maw once and for all.
Monster. It got out. now you're here. You're the only one who can fix this.
What?
It all ends in me.
But... No! No!
You can't send a spirit away while the host is still alive. That's why you couldn't destroy the monster. That's why Sadness didn't want to go.
But... You're my sister.
That's why it has to be you. I'm not strong enough. It won't let me.
Skin suit. No, too small. Constricting. Outgrown her. Don't need her. Suit. Light. Almost gone. Not dark yet. But it's getting there.
Marianne even suggests that taking her own life will also banish him, as it would sever her connection with the spirit world, shutting the Maw's way out and Lily's trauma. As her time to make a choice was winding down, the words of her father echoed.
Only you can end this.
You can't always save everyone, Butterfly.
You can't always save everyone. From how I took this ending, this was essentially a metaphor that people who experience severe trauma are essentially lost causes, and that past dwelling inside will just continue hurting the people around them. Because that's what the Maw was doing. The representation of her trauma was literally hurting and killing people around them. I constantly deal with the idea that my trauma will burden others, and to have this game basically confirm that through the Maw is not only disheartening, but it also scares me for other trauma victims and people going through a hard time. Everyone handles trauma differently, but every day is a constant battle with myself, whether I'm strong enough and whether I can heal. There was also Richard, a minor character from earlier. I also found the game emphasizing his trauma to be discomforting. He sexually abused Thomas's daughter, and they explain this only happened because Richard himself was beaten by his stepfather. I understand that people's behaviors and actions can stem from something, but how they portrayed Richard and his childish form felt almost sympathetic to a degree. It was like they were shifting the blame to his own trauma, almost as an excuse for what he committed. My abuser also went through trauma, but that does not justify what happened to me. A big part of healing is about ending that cycle and seeking help, not excusing the cycle's existence. The medium strongly implies this cycle through these demons being birthed through other demons and their actions. And coming back to the ending of the game, you don't break that cycle by committing suicide, assisted or not. I can't imagine how horrible it would have felt to hear the message, "You can't always save everyone," at the end of this game to people who have it mentally worse than me. There was a point where I had to fight every day to reaffirm my right to exist. This is why the medium is so offensive to me, and even others that didn't experience trauma. There are many people in dark times right now and being isolated because of the pandemic. Someone with suicidal thoughts can generally hide it well, as we've seen many times before. That's why this message is so irresponsible. Fuck this game. This was enlightening for me to hear because while the game's ending did bother me to a degree, I couldn't pinpoint why. I'm very grateful to see their perspective on this and help me understand a little better why messages like this are dangerous. I understand this is just a single example, but I think it's a conversation worth starting in regards to how people handle these kinds of topics in their works of fiction. I support freedom of creativity, but I also support strong criticism. This is something we felt is worth discussing against work like this, possibly as a way to get those creators to do better in the future. Not that I should expect Bloober to ever do better. They suck. We're not saying this game shouldn't exist, just that it's really shitty that it does. And please know that if you're ever considering something like that, you can always find help and talk to someone. Call 1-800-273-8255 for the National Suicide Prevention Hotline, linked to their website below. You are worth saving. Always. When the medium isn't delivering ham-fisted, ignorant messages about trauma victims, it's elbowing you right in the ribs and going, remember Silent Hill? Huh? You remember Silent Hill? Haha, of course you do. This is just like Silent Hill, right? Aren't we cool?
Not a whole lot of people knew about Neva. It used to be a government-owned vacation resort. Until one day it just stopped. And so an urban legend was born.
And no, you're not fucking cool. The medium was clearly taking heavy inspiration through its atmosphere and even hiring Akira Yamaoka, late I theorize, but why does it feel the need to derive from Silent Hill so heavily? Probably because it shamelessly advertised itself as being super inspired by Silent Hill.
Number 3. The medium is somewhat of a reunion tour of the Silent Hill Dream Team. The game's soundtrack is co-created with Silent Hill's main composer, Akira Yamaoka. Mary Elizabeth makes a return with vocals, while Troy Baker plays the character of the Mole.
Why hide? Silly little girl.
It's almost theft at this point. This is different from the developers of the original Silent Hill, which was a tertiary example of inspiration. Team Silent's method of writing and presenting those games were based on nearly countless pieces of Western media, inspired by the likes of Stephen King, David Lynch, Stanley Kubrick, Francis Bacon, Alfred Hitchcock, Dean Koontz, Salvador Dali, Alejandro Jodorowsky, Shakespeare for God's sake. And I'm not even close to the end of this list. Those creators successfully made 4 very unique experiences that to this day stand on their own. When Bloober Team is constantly taking so many notes from a single source, that being Silent Hill, it just feels like they didn't really look at anything else for the narrative and presentation, which is why it just feels so much more wrong. And in regards to the art design being inspired by Beksinski, I don't think I even said that right, I'm not particularly familiar with his work, but damn, it's dope as hell. I've heard criticisms that a lot of designs in the medium just look like watered down copies of his original art, which isn't particularly surprising considering these devs. There's also something to be said about games heavily inspired by previous history-making titles. Some that come to mind are The Outer Worlds, succeeding the original Fallout series and some of New Vegas, I think, Rock Band succeeding Guitar Hero, and Back 4 Blood succeeding Left 4 Dead. Of course, something to consider when it comes to games like these, nobody's going to fault the creators for heavily relying on the legendary status of these games because they made those games in the first place. Maybe it isn't 100% the exact same dev team, but there's enough of that original DNA where it's right to make that claim. For all intents and purposes, these games are the successors and have every right to draw in the fans of those original titles. Bloober Team and the medium can't really get away with that, despite managing to get a few people that worked on Silent Hill previous, which they heavily advertised. And what? Troy Baker isn't a Silent Hill veteran? He first appeared in the HD port of the second game, and he was terrible. Anyway, the point is that this game does not really get to have that much leeway, dissimilar to Back 4 Blood or Rock Band. Yamaoka hire be damned. As talented of a musician that he is, his only contributions lie with sound design when it came to the original 4 Silent Hill games. He wasn't the sole reason behind their absolute quality. If they were able to pull in folks like Masahiro Ito, Hiroyuki Owaku, or Keiichiro Toyama to do something, anything for the medium, I'd ease up a little bit. This is why I can't really respect this game. In so many ways, it just feels like something Double Helix or Climax or Vatra would have made if they were given even one more chance with Silent Hill. From the lame-ass chase scenes to the boring tasks they constantly make you do for some reason, it feels like they were snatching up parts of the original Silent Hill stories while taking notes from the Western Silent Hill's gameplay, which spells out disaster in my opinion. If you want to play a good survival horror game bubbling in a unique atmosphere layered with intriguing storytelling, then I suggest you play Silent Hill 1 through 4. If you want a recent horror game with sparse gameplay that handles similar themes in a much better manner, then I suggest you play Dark Pictures' Little Hope. If you want to play a miserably boring game that challenges your tolerance for terrible writing and horribly delivered messages of how to handle victims of trauma, then don't play the medium. Just reconsider doing literally anything else. Thanks for watching. Oh yeah, the split worlds mechanic. Yeah, that sucked too. A big thanks to my patrons for continuing to support me. I know it's been a little bit since the last time I uploaded something, and I'm really grateful for your patience. While this video was a bit on the shorter side, I have huge things planned for this exciting year. And a special thanks to the person who opened up to me about their experience with their perspective. It really helped me better understand victims of abuse and past traumas, and I'll be forever grateful for that.